Snake encounters can be in several situations. Sometimes there is a situation where the snake needs to be removed safely from human habitation, or in an area where it could be at risk itself, or there could be people at risk. So that is generally termed as a situation of rescue. But even in captive environments, in zoos, snakes need to be removed from a particular situation if they need to be examined, if somebody needs to take weights, or if they need to have a medical procedure conducted. So removing a snake from any situation, it has to be done in the safest manner, both for the snake itself and for the handler. When a snake is extracted, the most safe method to do this is the method that we're going to demonstrate here. So for here we have a PVC pipe, and that is sort of inserted in the center in a snake bag. This is a bag that is designed to carry snakes from place A to place B in the safest manner possible. Whenever a snake is extracted from a position, the first instinct that it has is to run away. So what you're trying to do here is to provide it with a safe retreat without having to physically handle the animal, and therefore it is safe for the snake, less stressful for the animal, and it's also safe for the handler. This is just placed against a wall and held in place with a largish rock, and that will provide it a safe retreat once it has to be moved from the situation it is in to the place that we want to take it. We're in an enclosure here, but we want to examine this animal. It's a spectacled cobra, and we're going to remove it in the safest manner possible and transfer it for further examination. Before we have done this procedure, we have basically made sure that the snake hasn't fed very recently, has not been in a situation where we have to be concerned about it being gravid or anything, because all the handling procedures etc. will change based on the current situation of the animal. If you see here, the snake generally wants to go away. It is not trying to be aggressive in any manner. So the more efficiently, the more smoothly you are able to handle it, the easier it becomes. Always one person is in charge at this time. There is nobody giving instructions. That person who is handling the snake really knows what to do and could do with no distractions at any point. Here you're just trying to allow the snake the time to sort of get into the tube and retreat, because that's what they will do most naturally. That's the most natural instinct for the snake to have. Maybe a little bit of encouragement. And very smoothly the snake will go in by itself. When the snake is going into the tube, you have to remember to make sure that it's not that large that it will turn around and come, or if it is, you've already always watched for it and you've made sure that you're preventing this from happening, because that can cause accidents. So here what we're trying to do is to make sure that the snake has gone behind that tube and can now be safely restrained with just the bag itself. They don't need a very large space because it's a short distance in which they're going to be moved. The more restrained the snake is, the safer and more secure it feels. So always while handling, make sure that you hold above the knot so nobody can bite you, and should you want to hold from the other end, there's always a separate hook for handling, so you're never in touch. Snakes have, venomous snakes have fangs, and they're very capable of biting through the bag, so you need to be aware of this at all times. When you're releasing the snake, also you have to do it with equal amount of care that you took when rescuing the snake. In a rescue situation, it is not complete, of course, till the snake is put back in the wild. Ideally, all snakes should be released at the place where they were found or as close as possible. We try not to move them more than a kilometer away, simply because, like all other species, they also tend to have home ranges. They are familiar with the place, and by translocating them for very long distances, we would be putting them into a situation which makes them very vulnerable, and therefore their survivability is in question. So release them as close as possible and follow all precautions that you took when you were rescuing the animal. So make sure that there is, when the knot is being released, the head of the snake is nowhere nearby so that you don't get bitten. And all you have to do then is to keep the bag open, and the snake will then come out of the bag by itself, sometimes with a little bit of encouragement. Even in an enclosure, while releasing the animal, make sure that you follow the very same procedure. And if there are other cage mates, if there are other animals that are within the enclosure, make sure you don't release it right where the other animals are, so that there is no chance of conflict, which could happen because the snake had been removed for a particular period of time. Large snake in a captive collection needs to be examined for several things, because they are cryptic species. In a naturalistic enclosure, the more naturalistic it is, the better it is for the snake, but it also becomes difficult occasionally to sort of examine and make sure that everything is going as it should. So you will see that this is a rat snake that we are handling. Most non-venomous snakes you could handle as long as you know what species it is and how to do it, and there is a little bit of confidence in handling the animal which comes with practice. You can identify this based on these beautiful black color lines that are there on the face, and snakes can't hear, so you can talk freely when they are around you, but they do sense vibration. So as long as movement is restricted, the snake will calm down. As you can see here, it will calm down and your handling will become much more simpler. They have this beautiful yellow coloration, but the reason for bringing these two snakes out is for demonstration that even within a species they can be so differently colored and the patterns can be different. So identification based on characteristics comes with experience, but it is something that anybody working with these animals should learn. Here you will notice that this snake is undergoing molt, which is basically shedding of the skin. It's a natural procedure and ideally it should happen in one piece. And as long as there is enclosure architecture, enough water, they will sort of rub themselves and get this molt out. Once this molt is out, you need to check that the molt has been completely out, especially from both the eyes, because if the eye caps keep getting covered with this, then it becomes dangerous for the snake because it won't be able to see. Check for external parasites and make sure that the snake is clean. This not only in captive collections, but also when rescue situations are happening. Before the snake is released, a visual check to make sure that there are no discharges from the nostrils, the eyes are clean, the eye caps are out. If it is molting, then you have to be careful about where you are going to release it, because at that time the snakes are most vulnerable, and that there are no external parasites, injuries and so on and so forth. In snakes, you will notice that they have a vent here, which is where they pass stools from. Okay, my dear. And the size of the tail is what basically identifies a male and a female. We know that it's quite capable of being by itself. So they're excellent swimmers and snake, and they're good to have around you because they eat all the rats, which is their primary diet, and also keep the pest levels around you under control. Mouth with the bifurcated tongue. So they basically smell the environment, they look for chemical signals with the bifurcated tongue, and then they take it back inside, and there is something called as Jacobson's organ, which is on the upper palate of the snake, and they use that to sort of demystify the chemical signals that it gets from the environment. So right now there's a lot of people, we all smell different, so it's basically trying to figure out what's going on with this constant movement of the tongue. Here's generally how the molting occurs. So you will see that it's shedding its skin. This is the upper layer of the skin, it's called the epidermis, and it comes off, ideally it comes off in a single piece where it's like a sock that is being removed. So it comes off inside out, and it includes everything including the eye cap. But there are occasionally it might happen that the molt is not coming out in one piece, and we'll have to keep an eye on the snake to make sure that the molt is complete and the eye caps come out eventually.